Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening somewhere else. I see a lot of people. I see Haley Catpaws, our number one supporter. I always see you on the streams. I see you on the Discord. Lovely seeing your face. I see Liberto Player 2 Studios. Yay! Welcome, everyone. How are you doing today? I see those hands five signal going. As always, I'm going to introduce my coworker, my lovely coworker and very ingenious creator, August, our interactive engineer. Hello, August.
Hey, how's it
Hi,
going, Sadie?
Sasha. Hi, Daily Dose of AR. How are everybody
Welcome
feeling
all.
today? Welcome. I see there is a poll going on. Feeling 67%.
Nice,
Everybody's
that's pretty
feeling
good.
good today. Yeah. Hi, Bruno. Let's get started with our content. There's an effect that's very, very popular. I think it's like a duck dash with music going on in the background. Everybody loves this effect. I was wondering, could you give us a little tip on how to create an effect like that?
Sure. So if I were going to create an effect like that, I might go back to the bat side scroller micro jam for one, and use the seamless repeating background thing, and that subgraph could be useful. But essentially, let's see if I could figure out how to show this on screen. The first thing you might want to do is use a face effect, face sticker, and uh, and just basically shrink this down and pin it to the nose. This is the first part where you would get an object to pin to your nose, and this is probably the duck, right? So then I don't have a picture of a duck, so I'll just use this. But this would be your character that you're moving around,
Not a
and then
photo of
you
you dubbing, like dabbing?
not this time, not this time. I lost that. I don't know where it is.
Are you serious? I missed that
No,
photo. You should do a photo
I'm
of you dabbing, and then all of the notes should be of you just screaming. So it's like ah ah ah.
I'll work on it for next week. Uh, not really. Um, but let's see. Yeah, to make that effect, I think you would have to also use collision. So the last couple of weeks, I think we've made a collision subgraph to show how to do that exact type of collision. So we would plug in this character, and then for each object that you want to compare against, you would plug in that other object, and then you would have a stack of these subgraphs. Maybe I can make one real quick. I don't know how deep we want to go into this question. Um, but you would just be comparing, is it colliding with this object? Is it colliding with this object? Is it colliding with this other object? And the easy way to do it would just be checking against every object, every frame. If you have 1,000 eggs that you're uh, comparing against, you might want to do some optimizations where maybe you only ever have 10 eggs, and you're just making it so that when they pass one side of the screen, they're just reappearing on the other side of the screen at the next point. That would be like a pretty common optimization called pooling. Look up pooling if you've never heard it before and you want to get more into like making games. Object pooling will make it so that you don't have to have 1,000 eggs. You just have to have 10 eggs that keep moving themselves and resetting themselves as a new egg when they're finished with their job. Um, so yeah, you would compare against these eggs, and then when they collide, you would play a note, and maybe you don't even have them play a specific note at the moment that they collide, but maybe they just set a flag saying, "Hey, whenever you get to my note, play it, so that it plays on a specific rigid schedule and it's not based on random collision timing. And that's how I would make it without showing you any visual scripting. But if you want me to remake the radial collision subgraph again, I could do that as well. But that's all there is to it, really. Maybe some transit by times to move the eggs from the right side to the left side on a loop.
Thank you. Because we did the radial collision 2 weeks in a row, I think unless someone has a question about it in the chat, we will move on to the next question. IL Superhero Super Row 67 asked, how can I get the current frame number of a texture sequence?
How can you get the current frame number of a texture sequence? Okay. So texture sequence info will give you the frame count, and then so the current frame number is going to be in the animation sequence controller. That's going to be, it's going to be current frame number. And basically, if you want to get this number, you're going to have to use one of these, even though you don't need it if it's automatically playing. I'll just add one just to make sure that it's, oh yeah, you have to add it this way. So animation sequence. So we've got this object. Now, even though you don't need it, you're just going to have it looping on your nose like this. You'll want to do this, or do my favorite thing and say, screw that, I don't want to get the component. Just click here, and bam. It's just automatically grabbed from the hierarchy.
I love that
this
new
feature.
update. I know, because before you had to go there and go get image or get component, and I just love that. It makes everything more like beautiful and concise in the visual scripting board.
And for new users, I know a lot of people when they first started would like grab this and drag it in and be like, I dragged this object in, why can't I plug it in? So there's no more confusion about that. This will pick the right component for you. So it's a lot less confusing. And then you have to remember, if you do this, well, actually it's playing now. I think it'll work if you just do this. But just keep in mind, if you ever use any of these inputs, the play, stop, pause, resume, you're going to have to remember to use the 2, because currently the default is 0. So if you hit play now, it'll play from frame 0 to 0. So it'll basically just stay on the first frame. So you don't want that. One thing you can do is you can plug in the texture sequence info, and then you would just plug in the texture sequence, which we don't actually have access to since it's the default texture sequence. But yeah, you would do this if you want to automate the length. You could also just be like, oh, I know my animation has 15 frames, so let's just put 15. So either way works. But yeah, just keep that in mind. That's very easy to overlook if you're using this node.
Thank you, August. I have another question from the same person. They say, how do I use an animation sequence as a texture for a plane?
Yeah, let's do it. So first thing I would do, actually, I don't remember if you even need to do that. Let's just add a sphere first, or a plane. Sorry. So we'll add this plane. Take this image off. So here you would just add your animation sequence, and then notice that the only things you have on here is a transform, mesh render, and animation sequence. So usually the animation sequence automatically works with the image component, right? Well, it can also work with the mesh renderer by accessing the material. So to access the material, you'll click this texture binding and choose which texture you would want to bind. If it's none, that's when it will work with an image component. But other than that, these are all the material textures that exist. So say that you want it to work with the albedo, which is the base texture, then you'll do this. And let's see. So you notice that it's not running right now. So I think that might just be because it's using the default material. So you might just have to have a different material. Because unlit, it has albedo. Oh, you have to create a new material because you have to be able to click texture on. If texture on is not clicked, then it's not going to even try to use a texture. It's just going to ignore any texture that's provided here. So yeah, that's the thing to look out for.
Another user was wondering, is there a way to use 3D face mask and use skin smoothing or beautify effect in the TikTok app?
You mean use both of those features? Is it? I'm not 100% familiar, but do they conflict currently or?
That's what this user says. I am not completely sure on my end.
Um,
I
yeah, I, w- I would, I personally am not up to date on the current status of that, like how compatible the makeup is with the 3D face. So yeah, maybe we can find out for next time or something like that.
sounds good. Uh, s- a user asked, they want to create an effect that responds with facial expressions. Is there any way to do that?
The facial expressions. So there's a couple different things that we can have under the head and face section of the new nodes. Um, you can find facial expression detection and facial movement detection. So these are pretty similar or sort of similar. So I'll add both of them in case you meant one or the other. So facial movement detection is things like eye blinking, mouth open, eyebrow wiggle, and then facial expressions like happy um, or sad or surprised. And then these events will happen when it's like when one of those things happens. And they just happen one time, and the stay and none happen every end. They just happen one time, and the stay and none happen every frame if you're surprised or not surprised. Cool, cool. All right, cool. Okay. Yeah, I was just basically going over this. Sorry, it's a lot of noise in my ears. Um, I was going over this facial expression detection. Begin happens when you when you start this expression, and end happens when you end this expression. And those things only each happen one time during one frame. The stay and none, on the other hand, will happen every single frame that you're surprised, or the none will happen every single frame that you're not surprised. So those will continuously keep triggering to show you the current state, and then begin and end will tell you when the state switches to a different state.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And sorry, everyone, about the technical difficulty. My computer is breaking out on me. Might have to get a new one. Let's move on to the next question. It says Haley Catpaz is asking, how would we do a delayed drawing effect? For example, if when the user draws on the screen, the previous ink disappears.
Um, yeah, so the previous ink disappears. That sounds complicated. I can think of a couple things I would try, but I don't 100% know what would work for sure. One thing that I would try, the first thing I would try is to try to create an eraser. I've done this in the past, but I haven't used it much. So if I can remember, it's a little bit of a complex setup. Let's see. So screen image. Let's create a new node to make it easier. Yeah, I don't know how deep I want to go into this. Oh no, it automatically deletes the node. No. I can't copy paste. What's going on? Okay, I'll just duplicate and drag. There we go. Okay, so this camera, we'll set it to don't clear, and we'll set this to invisible. And then for this screen image, we'll just say that it's a very obvious color so we can recognize our object. And then we'll create a render texture. And then this camera goes out to the render texture. Yeah, I'm speeding through this part because I'm not really teaching how to make a paintbrush. I'm just answering this one question about paintbrushes. So now when you drag this around, it'll paint on the screen.
If you want to know more about the paintbrush, August has a paintbrush microjam that you can find in our Discord channel. So if you haven't looked at that already, check that out. If you want to know how to create the paintbrush effect, this is more for the specific questions about disappearing. Continue, August.
Yeah. So the first thing, this is one thing I've tried. If you notice, I just created a background object. So I'll just use default texture and just make it all black. And really, all you want is like a black background to work off of. I'm trying to think if there might be some step I'm missing, but let's let's see. So you'll want to use this screen image to use an is it lighten or I wonder if the blend mode I previously used is still here. I can't remember, but yeah, so say that this is our brush, right? It's just a pink brush. If you wanted something to erase it, you might have a second one, and this might be your eraser, and this object. Wait. Okay, so this one is pink. So it's drawing, and then you've got this other one that's just kind of erasing. Oh. Okay, yeah, it's not gonna paint over the current brush, but it'll paint where the brush has been. So one interesting thing with this is you can like lower the opacity. You can bring it all the way down to like 0.1. And then when you paint with the pink brush, you'll see it kind of fades out over time. Now that fade out is going to be different depending on the frame rate of the effect. So it's not ideal. There might be some other methods that you can use, but if this is running at a really high frame rate, then it's going to fade out really fast because it's going to go down by 10% per frame, not per second. And so that's one way to sort of like do a sort of eraser, but then you have to figure out the blend shapes. So let me see. I'm trying to think of how I did it in the past, but there's a way to make the black background kind of hide. It might be having a different blend mode. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. Um, but yeah, with the black background, you can do some additive blend mode, which I can't seem to find in this blend mode. It might have been in the old 2D, and I'm just not sure what it's called in the new 2D. So I'll have to look into that. I was pretty sure there was an add blend mode before though. But I think that's what you would do. You would have the background back there just to have a black, fully black zero base, and then you would add your paintbrush onto it, and that way um, you can add the color without adding the black part. The black can just be transparent. But yeah, I'll have to look into that. You might have seen we're updating the micro jams and putting them on the website when we have the opportunity to. So this will be something we'll definitely look into when we're updating the paintbrush micro jam for the new 2D system.
Yep, thank you so much. Also, I've been getting questions about, hey, where can I find these lives? Is it available in the YouTube channel? As you have seen just now, there are technical difficulties like this, so I'm just waiting. I'm just editing out all of the parts. So if you don't see it on the live just now, give it a couple days and we'll sure to have it on our channel. Thank you for your patience. Haley Catpaw says, ooh, this is awesome. Thank you so much. This helps a ton. Yay. So I think, August, you did a very good job and it was very helpful.
Awesome.
Another question from Microjams. Today we're having a lot of questions from Microjam projects. So I think this user wants to use your scoreboard Microjam, but wants to use a different font. And in that case, do you just go in and change the animation sequence?
Um, so as you probably know, the animation sequence is just a series of images. So all I did was I created like a Photoshop project where it's just a specific canvas of the maximum height and width of the characters of my like widest characters. So since they're numbers, it's pretty easy if you choose a font where they're like monospaced or monotyped or whatever it's called, so that they're all pretty much the same width and height. And then just remember, you basically have to go through and just type out each character that you want. Same for the Microjam keyboard. If you wanted to make a new font, you would just type out all the letters A, B, C, D, all the way through Z, and then you would just export them. One thing I've noticed is with numbers, sometimes if you type them into the same exact text box in like a program like Photoshop, you'll notice they're not perfectly centered, and it actually does look better if you make sure that there's the same amount of space on the left and right side of the character. So you might have to readjust each character a little bit, just to center them. But yeah, you'll just create like 10 pictures of numbers 0 through 9, and then you'll re-import.
Sounds good. So if you want to use the existing Microjam projects but give it your extra personal oomph, go consider changing the assets into your own. I have another question from Alexis. She says, hi all, I'm a little stuck. I want to move the position of an object backwards, have it pause for 2 seconds, and then go back to its original position. The ping pong option on the transit by time patch is perfect, except I can't make it pause in the middle. I thought of triggering the ping pong boolean after the transition starts, but I can't find a way to do that. Any insights?
It sounds like you're trying to make the transit by time work a little too hard, and we need to give it a break and just hire a second one. So instead of ping pong, if you wanted to wait in between, I would literally just suggest adding a timer in between, and when it ends, start the timer, and then when the timer ends, start the return trip, and just try. I think the ping pong is like a convenient option for like specific cases, but yeah, it doesn't sound like something that'll work for this.
So make sure to add a little time at the in between and you should be able to work it.
Yeah.
I think we're almost close to an end today. How is everybody feeling? Feeling good, everyone? Oh, FF Gaming 789 from the chat asks, "Sir, can you tell me Sky Planet Earth effect?" I think this person is talking about the castle template.
Oh, okay. Castle in the Sky.
Yes.
What's the question about it?
I think they are just wondering how to create an effect like that. So maybe we can open up the template and show them, like, hey, this is what you use.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is one of our more recently released templates, I think, right?
Yes. And it looks awesome. Every time I look at it, I feel like it's in like a big gaming engine or something.
Yeah, so there's a few things that we have going on. One thing you'll notice that there's a skybox. A skybox is actually just a cube map. So it's like it's basically 6 textures on a cube. And there's basically essentially just a giant cube in this scene that renders on the inside. Like you can see
The
a couple,
crevices,
a
the
couple crevices. But it's rendered in a way that it looks round around you because it's like essentially infinitely far away. um, so yeah, that's one big component of this because it no longer lets you exist in the AR space where you can see your surroundings. You can now see, and now it's almost like VR because you're like in a whole different world. So that's one thing, one big component. And then you've got your castle. Now the castle is just on this like AR container. It seems like it's just a holder object. So there's nothing special about this. I think it's just the fact that it's rendered with AR camera. So if you have an AR camera, the only difference is that it has the device tracker here. So you can change it from world to orientation if you want the castle to like change its position when you walk forward. If you want it to just be, if it's something that's like huge and in the sky, you don't want to be able to walk closer to it because it should be very far away, right? So then you'll choose orientation so that it's just like it's kind of like the skybox. You can assume that it's very far away. So translation won't really do much, just rotation.
So if you wanted to customize this effect, you can remove the floating castle, although it looks very cool. And if you look on the top left corner, there is a way to connect to Sketchfab directly. So if you go from there, you can add your own assets. It can be a spaceship. It can be a huge, gigantic character. So whatever your imagination takes you. I think
Yeah.
we are at time today. Thank you, August, as always, for leading a wonderful session. I hope all of you guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you again soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye.
All right. See you guys.